Hey everybody, we're live. Happy day before Halloween. It's Friday, October 30th. You're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. You can chat along with us over on Twitter at our hashtag CMGR Hangout, where I know a bunch of you are right now. So, hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday. If you love what you're seeing and you have a great idea, please head over to our website at www.mycmgr.com. Click on the participate button there. You can fill out a form. It's really your ideas. It's you. It's your friends, your network that keeps the show going each Friday. We just show up. So, all right, what do we have for you this week? Well, this week's pretty cool. We're talking about building community around a cause. I have some great folks who joined us today. And, really, I think rallying together as a community with purpose is always rewarding. And let's just dive into things. I know we started a few minutes late. We got some costumes going. That's pretty amazing. And so, yeah, Tim, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brew. Good to be here. Tim McDonald. I am the purveyor of purpose at Be the Change Revolutions, and also get to work on the No Kid Hungry account, which I do personally and professionally, which is all that much more rewarding. And I don't know who I am, actually. They told me somebody needed a costume, so I grabbed what was close.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry Rohde. I'm the community manager at Magento and co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Brew and Dom.
Hey everybody, I'm Dom. I am a co-host here with Brew and Sherry for CMG Hangout, as well as a community manager with Be the Change Revolutions.
Who's next?
Oh, I'll
go. My bad, you guys. I do that every time, don't I? Hi, I'm Kristen Cardos. I'm all over the place. I am on the team finally with these awesome dudes at my community manager. I help moderate the chat. Good to see everybody.
And I am Casey. I am a social media manager for Cisco's talent brand team, and I do some charity work with the St. Baldrick's Foundation here in Florida.
Hey guys, it's Brock. I am a community manager in different places. I am at the Google Small Business Community, and I'm also now the community manager for Meshfire. And I'm excited, super excited about this topic. Looking forward to talking with everyone. And happy Friday.
Hey everybody, I'm Brew, Director of Awesome with Be the Change Revolutions, and co-producer here at MyCMGR. I'm just going to jump into question number one, which is, what causes have you helped to build community around or been involved with? So who would like to take that one right off the bat?
I'll jump in first. So I've done a little bit of charity work for a bunch of different organizations, but my big one year-round, as most people who follow me on social media know, is St. Baldrick's for Children's Cancer Research. And basically what they do is fundraising, and then those who fundraise go bald for the cause. And I have, you actually can't see how long this mess is up here right now, but it's quite long, and it's growing because my whole kind of story is that once I get married, I will also be bald for the cause. I've worked with them going on for 6 years now.
Awesome. So you're going to wait till after you're married?
Yeah, that was, I started that before Sean and I started dating, but that was one of the first things he learned was once we get hitched, the hair goes, and he's completely on board and excited about it. He and my dad also have shaved the past 3 or 4 years.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
They grow their hair out. Sean has very bright red hair, and it gets long and curly, so as long as he grows it, it just grows, and then he goes bald as well.
Cool. Who else has a community they've helped build or manage around a cause?
Well, I kind of mentioned it when we did the intro, but obviously with No Kid Hungry, I feel like when I first got asked to be involved with it, I didn't start the community, I certainly didn't build it, but I was definitely part of growing it, and that led to me kind of being a little bit more instrumental in doing it to really help get a lot more people involved with it, and it really encompasses, I think, just about everything, from fundraising to awareness to just elevating people up to that next level. And whatever their talent, whatever their skill, whatever their strength is, to be able to utilize that and point them in the right direction and connect them with the right way to get involved so that they can make the greatest impact that they have. Before that, I was really involved with a lot of different things, but one of the network groups I started running, one of the things that I found really purposeful about what we did and all coming together as a local community is we gave back to local charities as part of our monthly event. So it was a different one each month, but I really feel like that networking group really created a purpose unto itself by helping a lot of the different local charities that we had in our communities.
I'll jump on after that. We actually just started doing that with the Ballard Tech meetup that we started. We decided that we are going to have a cause for every month that we do the meetup, and then we give back to, like last month we collected stocks for October, and then we give that to a local shelter, and we're doing canned food drive for next month. I've been involved with a lot of small events over the last few years, but my passion is building a community, and actually, back in MySpace days, I did an auction and rallied like 100 bloggers around the cause and doing a 24-hour auction, and we raised about $1,500 for World AIDS Day. So it's always been a passion of mine. So I'm really excited to hear how everybody's doing building communities around causes.
I haven't spent a long amount of time building community around a cause, but I did help out with the actual fundraising campaign for Bella Mines back when Jen Shaw started that. And while it's not a nonprofit, the really cause that it was centered around was bringing tech education to women in rural spaces. So.
For me, I think I haven't been directly in charge of any communities, but definitely got involved with No Kid Hungry through their community, through the hashtag Team NKH online, and early on, even before the BTC days, would participate in fundraisers online, and then volunteer for different things. I remember one year I volunteered to turn people's profile pictures orange. We had to go orange for No Kid Hungry, so I just started photoshopping for people. Question? Was somebody going to say something? No, probably not, huh? I just thought I heard something. All right. Have you built cause? Oh shit. Oh, there we go. Have you built cause communities as an individual side or as part of an organization? So that's question number 2. Did I read that right, Sherry? We build cause.
Yeah, I don't know where the word side came from, but yes, you read it right.
Oh, okay. I was like, all right. So individual or organization. So I guess in these different areas, I think I don't know. We kind of answered that a little bit, but have you done anything just on your own?
I think for me, I started with St. Baldrick's as an individual. They just needed a photographer. So through social media and people who knew people, they got in touch with me, and I headed out there for the day. And now they can't get rid of me, and I refuse to be kicked out because I love it too much. But the great thing about where I work with Cisco too is that they're a very giving back infused company, so they like doing that and supporting their employees that give back to the community. So kind of doing it a little both now.
Cool, and I just quick saw this question coming in from Bree. So hey Bree, thanks for hanging out with us. Bree said, did you seek out these particular causes or did they seek you out?
I got sought out by No Kid Hungry after I gave a talk, actually, and it was something I had been aware of when I lived in Chicago. I had a good friend who hosted a bake sale for No Kid Hungry in Chicago, and Tati, who was my partner, she's really a foodie and just really passionate about that, and so I became aware of it through her. And I supported her efforts. I got involved with a lot of things, but when I gave a talk, I was just talking about not having my own story, and that I was able to share other people's stories. And it was after that that Kathy, who used to be with BTC and work on the No Kid Hungry account, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be part of the social council. And when I asked what was involved, it really just became something that narrowed my focus into one direction. Not that I can't, support other things, but I really got focused on No Kid Hungry and helping that cause. And so they reached out to me. I got involved that way, but I think it was what I did from there individually that led me to become part of actually working with the organization as far as just being an individual.
Anybody else? Anybody else saw it out or?
I had a friend seek me out for a Team No Cancer fundraising he was doing for Man of the Year a couple of years ago. So he sought me out to help him with the social side of things, and it was an individual effort for a greater cause. And I got a couple of friends who have Etsy shops to contribute to the cause as well, and do specific jewelry and kind of swag for the cause, for the donations to go to that. So that was a fun project, definitely. Totally forgot about it until now.
I think when it really comes down to like, do you seek them out or do they seek you out? I think that with causes, it's a little bit different, and I don't want to go too far into like the next question, but it is a little bit different than just like normal communities when you might like just be looking for a job or need to find something like that. A lot of times I think it feels like you feel very emotionally tied to a cause, so it sort of feels like you're almost called to it in a sense. Nobody likes to just have to do spreadsheets and put in data and stuff like that for your job, but with this, you sort of feel like you have, part of yourself, real personally, that's in it. So I think there's sort of a pull that, you almost feel like you're pulled to the cause rather than the cause pulling you.
Yeah, in my case, when Jen first told me about Bella Mines, she wasn't actually asking me to jump in, but after she explained it, it was something that I wanted to get involved in. So it's kind of a weird blend there.
I think I have a sort of a twofold answer to that question. The first, I have experience being involved with military communities. My husband's a retired Marine, and that in itself is sort of a cause, and then there are causes within the cause. But the first time I got involved with a community, a friend of mine reached out to me, and I was in a position to help with some information and some resources. So I was sought out the first time, and then afterward, down the road, I sort of missed that. I became irrelevant to the community because I moved away from it. But so then I sought out another opportunity to get involved and help people with information and connecting to each other. So kind of both for me.
So how do you guys think cause-centered communities are different from other communities? Dom, you started to dive into it a little bit, but let's talk about that.
I think that's an interesting aspect. I mean, I guess when you're in social, you're passionate about that sort of community-based environment. But I know for me, with the causes that I get involved, it just goes that much deeper. Like, it takes passion to a whole new level. And I might not talk to people about Twitter all the time on the street, random strangers, but that I will. That'll bring up and say, hey, have you heard of this cause? Or if they see like a T-shirt I'm wearing. There's a little more to it, a little more conversation, I think. And you can almost get a little more involved with it, which is what I like.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to building cause-centered communities, like we're all, as community managers, we're passionate about the accounts that we manage or the products, or whether it's B2B, B2C. When it comes to it's around the cause, everybody who's involved as members will bring a bit more of a personal touch to it. They'll bring their own stories. So the community itself just starts building around the members and their personal stories about this cause versus just our passion for it and trying to bring advocates. I think when it comes to a cause-centered community, it's the advocates are already there. It's our job to bring them all together into a community because they already have their stories that they want to share with the world.
And I think you bring up a pretty good point that I was going to kind of build on a little bit. It's, I think with the cause-centered community, you really, most causes allow their community members to share their own stories in their own way. And I think with most, for-profit brands, they're always wanting and used to controlling the message. And so when you have somebody that's not in a cause community that goes out and starts talking and being your product, your brand ambassador, a lot of times those brands want to shut them down if it's not saying it in the right way or portraying the right image. Whereas a cause center community is really all about the differences, because we're all sharing a common purpose together that we're trying to help solve. And so I think the opportunity that you have in a cause-centered community is really one where you are able to allow those community members to share their own stories in their own ways, without having to have that control or shut down on what they're trying to message to people. I also think that a huge opportunity here is people, and this isn't a hard, fast rule, but overall, people are much more inclined to want to do something when it's for a cause versus than when it's for a profit. And so if I'm a writer or a blogger, if I'm a social influencer, if I have an email list that has 100,000 people on it, I'm much more willing to do something if you call up asking if it's for No Kid Hungry than if I'm calling up asking if it's for a Fortune 500 company, and not wanting to be compensated for that, because your compensation is fulfilling you, not fulfilling your pocket.
So, what are some of the benefits of building your own community around a cause?
I'll hop in. Silence. I think the benefits, it kind of goes back to what Tim was just saying about how people sort of fuel that and feel that it's for a greater cause. It's usually for a greater good of society or something like that. So you get a little more oomph behind it, and you get these sort of, I know for us with St. Baldrick's, it started as a very small thing and it grew very rapidly, and now it's our event is one of the top 10 usually within the world. So you see how just something very small can sort of, in a great way, get out of hand very quickly, and it just grows because that community and everyone involved is so passionate about it. So I think those are sort of the benefits of just, I know in Florida, I sort of feel sometimes we don't have those great, powerful communities. They're here. You just have to kind of dig them out. St. Baldrick's for us is also centered around St. Patrick's Day. So there's a lot of sort of celebratory aspects to it, too, as well as we're fighting for this cause for children and to, help find cures for cancer. So there's a lot of little hidden benefits to it, but the community coming together is, I think, the overall overwhelming one I've noticed.
When I really think that building a community around a cause, what it does is it allows people to have a connection to you in a way that nothing else can. It really lets people connect with you on that personal, deeper level than what we normally see, especially online, people portray, which is only the best of me, only what's being talked about in the best light. And I think what a cause does is it allows you to build those relationships with people because of their struggles, because of their the obstacles that they've overcome in their lives, and really join together around that. And the magic for me has really been to see how people felt alone at one time, and then when you can bring them into this greater community, all of a sudden they have that sense of belonging now, that they're with other people that have traveled a similar path than them. And I think to me that's like the greatest joy or the greatest benefit that I have taken out of it personally.
To build on that, Tim, I think for me it's about what I love about building or seeing communities around the cause is amplifying that voice and that message, right? So it's about recognizing that we're not alone, but it's also about bringing more attention to that cause. And I mean, that's one of my passions, is amplifying the smaller causes and bringing those communities together. versus just the big causes that everyone knows about that does get the viral attention, that does get the screen time and the airtime and everything. But when it comes to the smaller causes and our community causes or like our neighborhood causes, by building even a small community around it, we're kind of amplifying the impact by that much. So versus one person talking about it, if it's 10 people talking about it, that's 10 times more, and that ripple effect really has a huge influence on it when it comes to building a community around a cause, no matter how small it is.
Yeah, you get to help shape the narrative within the community and also externally in trying to amplify it, or you get to help tell the story of whatever the cause is or whatever your community is doing to support it or what have you.
I think the biggest thing for me, and Tim put it a whole lot more eloquently than I will, but it's this idea of like when you're around a cause, I just feel like all the bullshit gets stripped away. And I know that there still is stuff that's there, but at the same time, you have, if you're in an organization and you're just in a community, right? I have a couple of coworkers that are here on this panel. Like there are times where I will disagree. There's times where like other things can get in the way. We do a good job, I think, of trying to not have that happen, but it just does happen because it's essentially for somebody else. But when you do it for a cause, I feel like people just it sort of has that rallying cry of like like what Tim said. It's like I'm not here for me. I'm here for this bigger picture. And getting a little meta with it. The people in general, just humans, are better when they're rallying around some sort of a cause. And if it's something that's good and you have that, I mean that's a huge benefit. People are gonna push that extra effort. They're gonna go that extra mile. They're gonna stay up that extra hour to be able to get things done because it's something a lot bigger than themselves.
How do you harness emotion? So we're going to move on to question number 5. How do you harness emotion for results in the cause communities? So what are some ways you can really harness that emotion? I think Tim, you brought up a little bit maybe about this before, but one of the things I've noticed just with the No Kid Hungry movement is I've been in groups of people where we start talking about it, and then someone talks about how they were hungry as a kid, and and they tell a little bit of their story, and like for me, I get emotional because I'm it's just like it brings that story so to life for me. I wasn't a hungry kid, and so it was very shocking to me when I first learned about the cause that we have hungry kids in the United States, and that many. And so it like really makes it real for me. When I hear these stories, it just like it crushes me. So it makes me want to participate more. So.
When I think you brought up one aspect of emotion in a community, which is that personal connection. There's also 2 others I think that I've seen, especially with No Kid Hungry, that really work effectively. And one is kind of the darker side, right? The darker side of that emotion, where you're actually telling it from the child's perspective. And this summer we did a big push. It's still not through Congress yet, but there's a huge bill that can affect summer meal programs for the next 5 years. And the stories that we told weren't always the rally, let's just call our senator, but it was hearing from kids about how they couldn't, during the summer get a meal unless if they rode their bike 16 miles to the nearest location that they could get it, or that they had to leave their house because they couldn't get on a school bus and ride their bike through a very bad neighborhood. And you start hearing those dark stories and the reality of the situation, and I think that attracts a certain group of people. But then you also have stories about Cher, who was a mom in Detroit, who just saw some kids playing out on her swing set in the lot next to her yard, asked them why they hadn't gone home to eat, and they said they didn't have any food, so she brought them in and made them a couple sandwiches. Well, over time, this turned into lots more kids coming over and her making lots of sandwiches for all these kids. And just last year, it turned into her getting her own summer meals truck where she could deliver the meals to the kids. And that's an uplifting story, right? So you have like these really dark, you know, hey, if you haven't been here, let me bring you into how it feels like. And then you have the ones that are the overcoming, the achievement ones, where even if you were here, we can get to this place together. And I think those two types of emotions are very effective when you're dealing with causes.
I think too, you have to look at, I mean, for us, it's you're dealing with kids and cancer. A lot of people think bald kids are cute. The sad reality is that these kids are facing a heck of a fight ahead of them, and a lot of them are being treated with adult chemos and radiations. So that's a scary thing. That's kind of one of the big platforms, is trying to push to realize that these kids are being dealt or prescribed medications that are meant for us as adults, yet, you know, you would never go to a grocery store and get your child an adult Tylenol and give them an adult kind of treatment. So why are we doing this now with these kids? It's 2015. So harnessing those kind of emotions of there needs to be a change. This is 2015 with technology and all these resources we have. There has to be something better that we can do for them. I know just the emotional aspect of it is, you know, that's a sad thing. I know I've gotten comments, you know, people are like, why are you posting this? This is so sad. Well, yeah, but you have to see that. You have to know that that is someone's reality. And no one is immune to that, whether it's a hungry child or a sick child, or, you know, whether it's children or adults. Or, I mean, things are happening in this world that I know the other response is, well, you know, one person can't change it. And I was like, well, I'm going to try. You know, it's better than not changing it. So I think just trying to get people to see that the awareness thing is great, but the action part is even better. And so I definitely try to use those emotions. As the photographer of the event, I am completely guilty sometimes of falling apart during these events. Since I've been with them for 6 years, I now know a lot of these families. I know a lot of these kids. I see what they're going through on random Wednesdays. I see when they're out of school and all these other things that are taking effect in their lives. So for me, there's an emotional pull of, you know, now they're parts of my family. So I want to do anything that I can. If that's an extra post on Facebook, that's what I'm sending out. So I'm using those little things for motivation.
Yeah, I think that one of the things about social media is that we love seeing the happy things. We love seeing the cute things, and we want to, it's kind of our escape from the reality. It's kind of our escape from the news, our escape from whatever it is going on in our lives. And I think when it comes to harnessing emotion around a cause, we have to break through that. We can have the happy stories of like the success that the community and like, you know, the programs that we're talking about are doing, but we have to kind of bring the reality and break through that fourth wall of being like, no, seriously, this is how it is. And we have to kind of force our audience and the community into the shoes of whether it's the mother of the child with the cancer, or whether it is, you know, the brother, sister, whoever it is, however we can connect with them. And that's kind of the hard part of it, right? Because we kind of, you know, go, hey, so here are all the bad emotions you're kind of trying to ignore, but if you want to care about this cause, this is the reality of it. So I think that it takes a lot for us as the community managers and those of us trying to rally people around this cause to tap into our emotions and remember that that's what people are trying to ignore. So how can we break through their walls and the happy, inspirational posts that are happening all over us? So that's the hard part of it.
We have a question that came in from Rachel Miller, or not a question, a comment just on this, and she says, causes are inherently emotional. If you can't tap into your community's emotions, you don't have a community. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, Brew, when I was down at South by Southwest a couple of years ago. We were doing a talk and talking about, you know, kind of advocates and ambassadors, and we were going through all of our examples, and, you know, there was me and two other panelists, and even I noticed in my own voice when I started talking about No Kid Hungry and what the work we were doing, all of a sudden my voice changed and I was so much more excited about what I was talking about and the emotion came out. So I think Rachel's comment is dead on, that when you are dealing with the community around a cause, that it is much more emotional, and that's how you can really tap in and let other people see that enthusiasm that you have and that passion that you have for that cause. So it's a great benefit.
We also got a question as we were talking about this. Above Promotions tweeted in, says, how often do you recommend asking for funds for the causes in the community? What do you guys think about that?
I love this question. I actually just kind of laughed a little bit at it. So for me, St. Baldrick's happens for us March every year. So almost from like end or beginning of the year, after the holiday sort of thing, that's when we ramp up. I've already started our page in terms of like, right now I'm trying to recruit people who want to lose their hair come March. So if anyone's interested in Brevard County, Florida, let me know. But that kind of moment between January and March, hardcore. I make no excuses. It will be everywhere. You will see it everywhere. For me, I'm not going to spam people with it, but I want you to know that it exists and that it's happening and that it is a big part of my life. And so it's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm sending emails. I do one email throughout the whole time. Facebook is probably my biggest one, probably a couple times a week, maybe for me. Throughout the rest of the year, really not that much. I kind of let it slide a little bit. I don't ask for donations, but I'm still posting sort of awareness pieces, and when St. Baldrick's funds a new clinical trial or something different that's helping the cause, I'll post about it so that people are aware, like, hey, your money is going to this. This is what we did, and we did it together. So whether it was $1, $100, $1,000, whatever, we did this together. But between January and March, yeah, it's going out a lot.
And I think the other important thing to remember too is you need to understand who your community is before you can just blanketly say, here's how often you can ask for it. But keep in mind that the biggest converter of donations isn't going to be social. It's still email. It's still personal, connections that people have. And so as an organization, when you're asking for money, I think it should be very few and far between, because if you can use social to actually drive people into the funnel wherever they're at, whether that's signing up for the email so that they're getting that, whether that be signing up for a personal fundraising team, whether that be, like with No Kid Hungry for a bake sale or for Giving Tuesday or for Friendsgiving, getting them in at those opportunities isn't a way that you're directly asking for money, but you're still helping raise money down the road. And those are much more effective, I think, than just posting, hey, donate today. Not saying that you can't do that, but I think they should be very few and far between, because social is not going to be your most effective place to raise money. It's going to come from other channels. So use social in the way that in proportion to how much money it's raising for you, and drive them to those areas where you're more effective with raising money.
I love that. So I do nail art too. I'll paint my nails, and last September, which is Children's Cancer Awareness Month, I just painted them gold, which is the awareness color for children's cancer. And I was at my chiropractor, and she was like, just commented, oh, I really like your nails. So I told her the story of why they were gold. And I went home later that day, and she had donated one of the biggest donations I had last year. Completely blew me away. And all it was nail paint and a conversation. Social media, it does well for me, but it is by no stretch of the imagination where most of my donations are coming from. So it's an excellent point that it's a lot of that little work throughout, just your day-to-day life.
Yeah, I think what's also really important, and I really love this model of allowing empowering the community to help raise the funds throughout the year, because then as an individual organization, the answer is a little bit easier, right? You can ask less money, or ask the money question less, right? To the full group. But I would also, don't forget, you do still have a funnel of new people coming in, right? And so there's probably some sort of cycle that new people can go through where you could ask them for money, at a different interval. But if your model allows your community members to do mini fundraisers all year, or a very easy way to talk about the cause, and an easy way for people to donate, I think that's probably even more effective than sometimes just constant direct asks. All right, well, let's move on to the next question. What are we? Number 6. So harness emotion. Yeah. So how do you manage goals and expectations in cause communities? Oh, that's interesting. People don't manage them.
I think I think for me personally, I don't know how St. Baldrick's does that. I'm not with the actual organization. I just help them out. But for me personally, when I see their blog posts about different things that are actually coming out from the fundraising efforts, those are, to me, are kind of the results. Seeing our local kids having access to this treatment and being a part of, just the community in general. What started as an annual event is now people I talk to daily. Those are sort of the results for me. They're long-term, kind of goals. So I think we're getting there, but I also think, it's not something that we can say, oh, we got 100 followers today, good for us. It's kind of that long-term community that we're going for.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I don't think this is partial to a cause community or any other organization that you're working for. I mean, you don't manage goals, you set them, and you don't need to manage expectations if you're hitting those goals. And so it's a pretty simple equation. I think that the benefit for a cause community sometimes is you're not always looking for the same metrics as some other organizations are. A lot of times it is just to get them aware of what's happening, to make them aware of what the issue is, and then bring them into that fold wherever they're coming in that funnel, so that they're in the appropriate communication channels to make the effect happen. So a lot of times it's about, how many people are actually contributing to this conversation around this activation. Sometimes it's around how much money we're raising around this activation. Other times, like we just did on Monday, it was about how many people actually made a phone call to their senator through the No Kid Hungry system. And to imagine that you're using social as a major component to get people to make phone calls to a senator, it doesn't sound like it's very achievable. But when you're using the channels and have built up a community and have them in that way, and have the right people in your community that will help you share your word for you, it becomes very effective to be able to do that. And so it's all about, I think, setting the goals, and you need to do that together. You need to be reasonable about what those goals are going to be, but then the expectations come from you laying out the plan and the strategy to help you meet those goals.
What about I think budgets probably come into play when I think about causes. I think generally we think about nonprofits, and so then you think, maybe, is there little money? Is there money? How does budgets how do budgets play into causes and cause communities? Even though I just realized I skipped a question here, but how does the budget work? Do you have anything on that?
I was going to say, it always seems like with causes you're asked to do more with less, as a general rule. But I think that does come down to the fact that most people understand, like we talked about earlier, that you can get people that normally would get paid to do something, get them to do it for free for a cause because it means something personally to them, where they're willing to actually take that action for you. But Yeah, I think with budgets, it's just like anything else. It's really just, setting the expectations to what the budget is. I mean, we can have a great idea. If it doesn't tie in with the budget that we need to spend on it, we're not going to get the same results of if we had that same budget. So it's really about, I think that's where it gets into managing the expectations, is if they don't have the budget to execute on the plan that you have, that they need to understand that the results aren't going to be the same.
So I actually have a question. Follow-up question to that. When you're talking about influencers and getting people who are going to talk about the cause because they, for free because they believe in the cause, do you have them start the conversation before the fundraising so it's just about the conversation, or do you tap into those resources specifically for the fundraising aspect of it? Like, how do you manage that manage those resources and when to tap into like an influencer in the relationship that you have?
Yeah, no, I love that question, because I think that's what a lot of people don't get. They see like the major activation day, right? They see that one day happen and those big results, and they see all these big names come in and start talking about your organization and your cause. And what most people don't realize is that relationship has been built up over months, if not years, of talking with that person and helping support that person in their own efforts, so that when you have the ask for the organization, for the cause, they're willing to do just about anything because you've been helpful to them during that time. And so for me, this is like such a thing that the public doesn't get to have this revealed to them too often. Is this work for what happens usually on these one-day activations is weeks, if not months, if not years, in the planning of building those relationships. And just like you have relationships with your friends, you can't have a relationship with an influencer where you only talk to them once a year and only ask them when it's time for them to fundraise. You need to be talking with them throughout the year about other things, hopefully not always ask. Most of the time you're giving, and then when you need to ask, it becomes very natural and very fitting for them to want to help.
I think that's the key there, right? I mean, you have relationships and in community. So again, going back to all of that, it's a consistent thing. It's not saying, the day before your fundraising event, hey, can you give me $100? It's a little more easy to make those asks of my good friends and the friends I've had longer than it is someone that, I didn't ask the poor lady at the chiropractor to donate. She just did that on her own free will. But, now my good friends, that's a different story. So I think it goes the same for influencers and just your community, your personal community in general. The more that you're invested in that cause, or someone, I know Tim works year-round with No Kids Hungry, and so when he comes around and there's an event going on, I'm listening already. I want to know what's going on. So I think you have to keep those conversations going. It's not just a one-day, a year thing.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, right? I mean, like you got to give first, give often, and although that sounds weird as a cause, right? From a community building standpoint, you have to find ways to kind of keep that relationship going, so it's not always like, oh, and they call me when they want stuff, right? Because even though you're passionate about a cause, that can still get old. So I think it's still important to follow some of the same rules of engagement.
I think it's even more important, like you think about it, and when you hear of causes and you hear that kind of stuff, you're always used to hearing, hey, we need money, hey, we need money, hey, we need your help, hey, we need money, all that kind of stuff. It's just sort of the same thing with marketing. It's like, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. Causes, it's like, oh, you're just trying to, you just need something from me. And it thinks about it. If anybody has been playing the Gary V drinking game in these panels, you've been thirsty for a couple of weeks, but it's the whole idea of that jab, 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 right hook. You have to really set people up, and there's so much noise, and there are so many causes, and there's so much going on that you really need to do a good job of building those relationships and building them deep, or else you're not really going to be able to get anything. Your right hooks are going to miss pretty hard.
I was just going to say there's so many causes, and everyone seems to be passionate about something, because it's almost like a requirement to living these days to have like a cause that you stand behind. So I think you have to realize that too. Everyone, it doesn't bother me when people say I can't give. Okay, fine. give some way. It doesn't have to be to me. But it is a point that there's so much noise just in the community fundraising sort of efforts too. So you have to kind of have that in the back of your head. And again, use that as motivation to keep those conversations and those relationships building for the future.
I like how you put that because I think you're right. There's ways to give that doesn't mean just cash, right? There are ways I can give to an organization, with time and talents as well. So it's great to have that kind of stuff available.
I love this one thing I heard a speaker talk about before I left New York. He was talking about the Hebrew word for love, and I'm forgetting what the Hebrew word is, but basically it doesn't have an exact translation, but the closest translation to English is to give. And so if you start thinking about that and the ways that you give is purely by loving the other person, we all can give abundantly to anybody that we want, and that's as easy as giving becomes when you're dealing with a community.
Was it Ahab? Do you remember?
No, it wasn't. That's not who I heard talk. But
Oh no, Ahab. No, Ahab is the Hebrew word for love. That's Ahab. So I thought maybe.
I don't even know. It might be Brew. I honestly forget, but.
Bust out my Hebrew there for a minute.
There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them.
There's tons of them. It depends on what type of love you're talking about.
Okay.
Where actually English is the only language that only has one word for love.
I'm going to have to look it up then and share it with you guys.
Yeah. We do have a question that came in that we'll take real quick from Rachel. Rachel Miller asks, how do you handle cause jacking? Which is more defined as people jumping on your bandwagon for their own benefit.
We're really protective about our cause. One, because it deals with children, and then two, it deals with sick children and families who are just at a devastating point in their lives trying to figure out this sort of quote-unquote new normal. So I don't like when people try to do that. And I have no problem kind of telling them where to go. I've personally had it a couple of times where people, because I started with St. Baldrick's as just a volunteer photographer, and I still, again, as Tim said, when I started, I didn't have a lot of money to give, but I could give them my Saturday afternoon and my photography. So I still do that, but I've had a couple people who try to just do that where, they're also photographers or they're also sort of in that sort of industry, and they think because I've just done it out of giving my Saturday afternoon and St. Baldrick's goes on to use my images. Honestly, I don't know which ones they use or don't use, or I just kind of hand them over a CD and say, have at it if you like them. But some people think that that's a way to gain exposure, and I think I would lose sleep overnight if I thought that. So we're very protective over that. A lot of those relationships we've had to build with those families have taken time. So you don't want someone to come into that community and essentially, it only takes one person to ruin a good thing. So you do have to be careful on that front. And we just sort of all kind of keep an eye out for everyone.
And I think if you build a healthy community, the community actually helps protect that from happening, right? They know when somebody's coming in and trying to do things for not the right intentions, and they will protect. They will, tell that entity or that person, that they're not welcome here, or they really shouldn't be doing it this way. So it doesn't always make you the bad guy as a community manager. It's really the community that you've built that really helps protect that, what the community is to them, because that's what they want it to maintain.
So what tools might you use? We're going to jump in. We've got about 9 minutes left here. Usually tool talk tends to eat up some time, but what do you think about what types of tools might be in our tool belt for locating people interested in the cause?
For me, it goes back to just having conversations. I think in the past 4 years, I've started a team as well, which is the one that Sean and my dad and my friends will shave under. And we are a very tiny team, but we try to be fierce. But it just started with asking friends, hey, would you go bald for children's cancer research? If they said no, they were open to helping fundraise and helping with efforts and helping to donate time or just coming to the event to see what it was like. Because we do tell people, like, this is an event. There's one that's in Orlando and it's a little smaller. This one out in Brevard, you just kind of have to be there to experience it and feel it and be a part of it. That community has a heartbeat all its own. So it just started with conversations. Now I might extend the offer out to social media and things like that. St. Baldrick's is a worldwide organization. Be a part of it. You can find one that's local to you. So, you know, if people are interested in it, I'm open to giving them that information, but it's just the conversation. Really, I don't know that I have any specific tools to go out and find people.
Brock, Kristen, you guys got any thoughts on potential tools?
Not tools, but I think that one of the cool things about, I've been a blogger for, God, over a decade, and one of the cool things about building a community around a cause is just reading, like, honestly, reading blogs and seeing people's personal stories, and like there might be something without even an ask, like you might see somebody write about it because it was a personal experience or it was somebody else that in their life that was dealing with something. So it's a lot of listening, and I mean it's kind of like community management in general, but when it comes to this kind of building a community around a cause, the listening can't be just with like the tools that are looking for keywords. You have to actively go and read and talk to people and take that conversation from off the blog into an email, into a private conversation. So there's a lot more due diligence that goes into it, and yeah, you can start with keywords and you can use the tools that we use and you can hop onto conversations around it, but it's really about stepping out of the box when it comes to finding the people who will be part of your community, and it can't be just the technical side of things. You have to really get into the personal stories, and that takes a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, I was going to say, I totally agree on the effort that it takes to build those and find those, because it's not just somebody that mentions the name or says a specific keyword that's going to fit into, you know, your community. So it's really about, you know, going out and finding those people. But, you know, a couple of the things that I use to do that is just, you know, setting up Google alerts for the most common, you know, mentions. And a lot of times people are writing blogs or being mentioned in news articles that you didn't identify as being part of your community. So, you know, that's a great way to find people that aren't necessarily on social but are still making an impact, you know, for your cause. The other thing that I really use a lot of too is just a Google spreadsheet. It's, you know, I mean, once you find these people and you keep track of them, make sure that you're you know, keeping them in a place where you don't have to go back and do all the work again the next time you're going through something. So keep a spreadsheet of the people that you're using, and if you do have the opportunity, I mean, and you do a lot of communication through email and social, I mean, look at using a CRM like you know, like a Nimble or something like that, where you can actually keep track and tag, you know, your contacts and be able to go back and find them very easily when you're looking for a specific area or a specific type of event that you're running, because that really helps you narrow it down a lot quicker once you've done all that legwork to get there.
Yeah, I like what Tim said. I should just keep saying I like what Tim said. But I think tools can be perhaps more helpful in maintaining the relationships and nurturing the relationships than even for listening and finding people, because that's a lot of the work when you're working around a cause. Agreed.
All right, so our last question is any last-minute tip here for building a cause-centered community? So if you were to give someone one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say go all in on it. I know for me, when I started with St. Baldrick's, I was working with a couple different organizations, and I felt a little spread thin on it. And it's not to say that I still don't do some work or give to some different charities and organizations, but when I decided St. Baldrick's was my cause and my heartbeat, everything went into that. And it just started to really sort of take off, and the people around me have gotten passionate about it. I know even Sean said, he's like, well, I thought I was going to shave once. He's going into his 4th year going bald. For us, that's another great conversation piece, because for a couple of months, people are walking around with no hair. So it's like, what did your whole family do? So I think it's just give everything you can. Doesn't have to be a lot, but give what you can.
Yeah, I think building on that, let your guard down, because it's, I mean, you want to build empathy and you want passionate people and you want your passion to come through. You have to let your guard down. And I mean, it's way different than managing a community for a product or managing a community for a service. It's, no, this is something you're passionate about, so you have to put your heart on the line and you have to show people how much you care, and you have to let that come through in the way you talk, in the way you write, in the way that you engage with people. Because too often we just we have our community manager hats on and we know what we need to do, and yeah, we're passionate about it, but we don't really, it doesn't permeate through everything that we do. Because we leave work at work, whereas when it's around a cause, like Casey said, you just have to put it all out there and really let your guard down.
I like what everybody said so far, but I also think, and this is based on my own experience, if you're getting involved with or helping to run a cause-related community, it's probably very emotional for you. So just don't burn yourself out. Make sure that you contribute as much as you can on your own terms, the way you want to do it, but don't let yourself go too far, because it probably is an emotional thing, and you can wear yourself out. So just don't spread yourself too thin with it. Be passionate, be involved, but try to know your limits.
Yep, and I was going to say, it's just really as simple as being vulnerable, being passionate, and being consistent. And when I told this story to Jeff Power, he just looked at me and he said, Tim, you're letting the world feel your heartbeat. And if you do that, you will be successful.
Awesome. Well, that's a great closer. Let the world feel your heartbeat. I love that. So, all right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. This is awesome. Definitely looking forward to the wrap-up. Sherry, I see you guys goofing around back there. You want to take the CMAT announcements? We'll probably announce.
There's no goofing around.
Nothing of the sort.
You guys are Snapchatting me the whole time, not
You started
participating.
that. Okay, in all fairness, our panelists are much more qualified on this topic. Okay. However, I'm not 100% sure what's going on next week. We have a tentative topic, but it's not finalized, so it might get swapped out. So we're either going to be talking Snapchat communities or talking with Sarah Robinson about something else community related. So I'm not sure which yet. Either way, it's going to be really fun.
Cool. And then we got CMAD coming up in a couple months. How are we on topics? Are we still looking for people, and what kind of people?
We're doing pretty good. We need some more international peeps to step up right now. Got a lot of time slots that are very early in the morning here. So yeah, that's going pretty well. But if you're interested, the link has been tweeted out. So just let us know how you want to participate and what topics are top of mind for you. Oh, and also in a couple of weeks we're talking influencers and discovering influencers.
Sweet. Great, guys. Well, hey, have an awesome weekend. Have fun. Don't get too crazy with the costumes. But if you do, make sure there's pictures. And we'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.